I've really been talking about Sega a ton these past few months. Dreamcast, Nomads, that hour-long Sonic video I did back in December, hell, even videos I intend to have nothing to do with Sega, somehow involve them being at least a part of them. That's exactly what's happened with today's video. This is the Wappy Dog, a robotic dog peripheral for the Nintendo DS that, at first, I thought had nothing to do with Sega. After all, the Activision logo is plastered all over the game box that came with it, and the Wappy Dog game was made by Activision. But guess what? Wappy itself was made by Sega Toys. That's right, this is a piece of Sega hardware that works with the Nintendo DS. But I really don't think that's giving Wappy enough credit here, because this is perhaps one of the most underloved peripherals that the DS has ever seen, or that it ever did see, since you know the DS isn't being made anymore. So with that, this is Stuff We Play, home of everything weird and retro. Today's video, Wappy Dog, that time that Sega made a robot dog. So, before we can go over Wappy themselves, and yes, I'm going with themself, this little guy is just too lifelike for me to be able to comfortably refer to them as an it, let's go over a bit of history here. To start, who remembers the iDog? It was a robo-dog you could connect to your iPod and it danced to the music. Kind of. It was rather stiff. And really, that was pretty much it. But it was still one of the coolest things I'd ever seen at the time, and upon release in 2005, it kicked off an entire robotic animal craze. This thing and different variants of it were everywhere. Sharper image robot dinosaurs, iPod fish, and countless other such robotic toys were a huge deal at the time. I remember even having a robotic penguin that could be plugged into an iPod. That thing was awesome. I mean, it kind of wobbled around to dance and that was it, but it's all it needed to do. Around the same time though, we got Nintendogs. Now, despite coming from a family that had real dogs that existed in real life, I loved this game. You could take care of and groom your own virtual dogs, and the abundance of different versions put most Pokemon generations to shame. There was Dalmatians, Chihuahuas, a bunch of others I'm sure. This was one game that me and several of my school friends played for a good year or so. We made a point of meeting up at least a few times a week to hang out and show off our dogs. We were essentially the child versions of boomer dog walking groups. It was awesome. But as awesome as both the iDog and Nintendogs and all the numerous clone games and toys that they inspired were, this was a fad. It was a pretty neat fad, sure. This era of toys and games could basically just be summed up as Furby but not creepy, but that's fine. By 2008 though, it was pretty clear that this was a fad that was waning. In 2009, the final iDog left the robo-animal shelter, and it seems like the rest should have been history. But then, in 2011, Sega Toys and Activision released the Wappy Dog. So what happened? Honestly, I'm not sure. Wappy didn't sell particularly well, and it's very hard to find info on this thing, especially about its development. It's like, this thing doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, and the only person I've ever met who knew what it was is Proton John Hard. The best I can gather, though, is that those at Sega Toys and Activision didn't want to so much capitalize on the Robo-pet / Nintendog craze, so as to make the next evolution of it. And in 2011, it looked like this might be a craze that would be making a comeback in a bigger and better form. Most notably, early that same year, Nintendo released their follow-up to the Nintendo DS, the Nintendo 3DS, and along with it came the much-hyped Nintendogs plus Cats. Yeah, I don't know anyone who bought that game either. The only thing harder than creating a fad is bringing back an old fad. Honestly, the only fad I think ever managed to make any form of a decent comeback was Beyblade, and even then that resurgence has mostly just been in Japan. But Wappy wasn't just a victim of poor timing, they were also a victim of poor platform choice. Though the Nintendo DS was still seeing new releases in 2011, and indeed it still would for another few years, it was definitely winding down. The 3DS was the new hotness, and despite Wappy being a really cool piece of kit that I would have loved had I known about it, releasing it for the DS in June 2011 really probably didn't help sales. I should note, there was actually a 3DS version of Wappy, but only in Japan. That one was pink instead of blue, and was meant to be used with a downloadable 3DS app. I also can't tell if the 3DS version of Wappy was ever even planned for a Western release, but what I do know for sure is that Wappy was actually called Poochie in Japan, and I honestly don't know which name I like better.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
Also, we need to talk about Wappy's advertising, or rather the lack thereof. That's the other reason that this little guy probably failed. Wappy hardly had any advertising. From what I can tell, they were only sold in limited quantities in a lot of places, and that's a shame. All the reviews I've found for Wappy gives them glowing praise. So that raises the question, is Wappy actually fun to play with? You know, I think I enjoy the company of this Robo-dog more than I enjoyed the company of most people. Seriously though, Wappy is actually really, really awesome. Before we go on though, I need to give a huge shout out to my buddy Nick over at Epic Games and More in Victoria, BC. He is actually the reason I own this little Wappy here. EGM got this particular one in stock mid last year, and I ended up asking Nick about it the day it came in. I was willing to make an offer for this DS doggo, but Nick ended up just giving Wappy to me on the condition that I make a video on them. Well, that was July 2019, it's currently May 2020, so I didn't take too long, right? So let's say you bought a Wappy when they were new. What would you get in the package? Well, Wappy came in a very, very big box. This contained both Wappy themselves and the game in a standard DS case. I don't have that original big box though, just the doggo in the game case. Wappy is honestly adorable. Even though my Robo-pooch is a little yellowed and covered in stickers, which apparently came with new copies of the game, I can't help but find them to be just absolutely precious. But without a DS system in the game cart, what Wappy can do is very limited. Without said things, they can just make a limited number of cute noises, stretch, and do these cute little light up things with their eyes. You can also interact with Wappy by petting them, stroking their tail, or booping their nose. The last of those is my favorite because it causes them to emit an adorable little robo-sneeze. Oh, I love it. However, when I first booted up Wappy to record this video, they started whining weakly. I was worried at first, but then it hit me. The batteries were low. So, armed with 3 AA batteries and a small Phillips head screwdriver, I made quick work of that. Within a few minutes, Wappy was back, happily up and running. Before we can start playing with our new pupper pal, let's take a look at the game case. Note the prominent featuring of the Activision logo on the front, but only a super small Sega Toys logo hidden in the fine text in the back. Also note the not for resale sticker on the back, yeah, I don't know what that's about. Inside the box, we'll find just a manual and the game itself on a standard DS cart. Really, there's actually nothing special about the cartridge itself, unlike with, say, Pokemon Typing DS. How the game interacts with Wappy isn't through Bluetooth or anything, but rather through the game emitting sounds that Wappy will react to. That's also why the game is best played with your DS's volume on max. With that, let's dive into the actual game itself. By the way, as there's nothing special with the cartridge itself, I'm playing this one today using my new 2DS XL, as I unfortunately don't own a 3DS capture card. Anyways, the Wappy Dog game is divided into 2 modes, Home Mode and Travel Mode. Home Mode involves you using the DS to interact with and play games with Wappy, while Travel Mode allows you to transfer data from your Wappy robot to the game and then play and interact with them in a Nintendogs-esque form. There are also mini games to play, with the mechanics of these differing between home and travel mode, and Wappy, depending on the mode, will play with or against you. In this way, along with being a new take on the iDog and Nintendogs, Wappy also comes off as a cuter, more functional version of Rob the Robot. Unlike Rob though, Wappy doesn't literally play the games with you. Instead, in home mode at least, Wappy will take the form of an AI and your robot dog will just react to certain sounds made by the game. So your robot dog isn't literally playing mini games with you, but the game does a good job of masking this. It really does feel like Wappy is both being a robotic canine companion and also a gaming buddy. Going through home mode, we can give commands to Wappy, ask them questions, feed them virtual food, and also play the aforementioned minigames. None of said minigames are particularly hard to grasp, most involve the touchscreen, and all are a joy to play. My favorite is this penguin minigame where you have to use the stylus to get rid of snowmen standing in this penguin's path, but If you tap a balloon when one appears, Wappy will come in with an epic screen clearing move that gets rid of all the snowmen. It's really oddly addicting and it's just good stuff. But then, let's say that I want to go out of the house with my game, but don't want to risk harming my Wappy Dog, who I named Wap Wap by the way. Well, the game allows you to, and I quote, transfer Wap Wap's heart into the system. That sounds way creepier than it is, by the way. What this does is it allows you to enter travel mode. Here you can wash Wap Wap, teach them tricks, and even play with various toys with them. You can also decorate their in-game equivalent with unlockable accessories. The only things you can't do here that you can Nintendogs is get more Wappies or compete in dog show-like things. Also, due to being a robot, you thankfully don't need to worry about cleaning up after your Wappy. Honestly, I really love interacting with Wap Wap here. There's a variety of stats that change depending on how happy they are, though sometimes even things as simple as washing them will make them feel naughty or happy or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what changes those. The minigames here though are also a blast. Like in home mode, they mostly use the stylus and they're easy to pick up and play. One of the best ones is this whack-a-mole game, where you actually compete against Wappy. You can also unlock additional rooms to play with your Wappy in, and you can get certain toys such as this bubble blower that even take advantage of the DS's microphone. It's easy to find out how to unlock new things too, as tapping on anything that you haven't unlocked will just bring up the unlock requirements. My favorite toy out of all of them is definitely the Frisbee, by the way. I mean, look at how good Wap Wap is at playing catch. Oh, just look at them go. So, really and truly, this travel mode is a better Nintendogs. Some may be asking though, what's the point of washing and playing with Wappy so much? Am I just trying to 100% the game, get all the toys and accessories, and then never touch it again? Well, no. To be honest, that's not really what I'm here for. I just enjoy booting up Wappy every so often because the Wappy Dog game is legitimately charming and enjoyable. It's a relaxing experience, even if some of the minigames do get fairly challenging on harder difficulties, but really that's fine. Wap Wap is a lot of fun to play with, both in home and travel modes, and if you want to experience this for yourself, near mint condition Wappy sets are dirt cheap on eBay right now. So, Wappy is awesome. They're a better iDog. They're a better Nintendogs. They're even a better Rob the Robot. The only place Wappy didn't do better than all of those things was in sales. And that's a shame, because little Wap Wap here stole my heart. So with that, that's it for today's video on Wappy here. I'd like to once again thank my buddy Nick over at Epic Games and More for giving me this little guy, and honestly I'm sorry this video took longer than expected to get out. But hey, at least I finally had time to do all my promised vids, except for that Amiga vid that's still in the works, since current global pandemic related events happened. But anyways, what's your favorite Nintendo DS accessory or your favorite piece of Sega hardware? Let me know in the comment section below, and while you're at it, subscribe to Stuff We Play for more great content. Got you Wappy, setting you down nicely. Like this. I'd also like to give a huge, massive thank you to both some of my Patreon patrons and my YouTube channel members. Those folks are Justin Chipman, The Golden Bolt, Don Ola, List, Robert and Abby Hornibrook, Eli Cole, and G to the Next Level. They're all great folks and their support means a ton, especially right now. So with that again, thank you very much for watching. Stay classy, and I'll see you next time.